awful.
With 1.8 seconds, Charles Barkley. Over Hot Williams. 1.9 left in regulation. Kevin hit it.
Richardson up ahead. Look out. Hello, Amari Stoudemire elevates and detonates.
Well, that seemed like a sharp cutoff on my end. Was that sharp on yours as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're back, Planeteers. And yeah, as you can tell, we actually got the logo up this time. And we actually had the intro this time, even though it was a little off. So working on that. But gosh, it just felt good to have one for, the last 4 or 5 episodes where we've been on the free service that I was just telling Bruce backstage. If you loaded things into there and thought that they could be accessed, they cannot be. It is now behind a paywall in the old account. So if you wanted to go and take it and put it into a different account, nope, you better hope that that file was saved somewhere else. So that's a little bit of the challenge. But it's just great to have an intro and outro back, Bruce. I don't know about you, but feels more like the show's complete with a little bit of production value.
Oh, I completely agree. It's just so nice to actually just have the background, have the intro. I feel a little bit more accustomed here. We'll eventually have some more of those drops and stuff like that to have some more fun here. But I know that you got the nice little soundboard for us today, so I think we'll have a great stream kind of doing stuff
That's
like
gonna
that.
Be so awful.
Exactly.
I'm gonna use it. Everyone just listening is like, wait a minute, what just happened? Yeah,
They're
we
like,
got
"Hey,
like
who's
the
laughing through my
radio,
phone?"
like 5 a.m. drive to work. It's time for our next subject. Why is Amari Stoudemire so beefy? No, I think that'll quickly be phased out after maybe an episode or two of just, okay, can you stop doing that? So yes, I'm glad everyone seems to be enjoying that. Yeah, but let's start with that, Bruce. Did you see how big and beefy Amari Stoudemire is? I think he can come back and play.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit of it pregame. It was nice to see that they had so many of the former players in Phoenix for the home opener. I believe Matt Ishbia said there were 60 former players, and John was at the stadium watching the game. That's pretty cool to just go out there and see personally. I've been to TD Garden a couple times. I've never been able to get over to the morgue, is that's what it's called now? Over
I like that nickname, yeah.
Over at
I hated the name, but I'm glad we were able to twist it.
But over there, I mean, that must be amazing for all the beat writers and for the fans as well, just to kind of see all those valuable players, people that it still matters to them being a part of the Valley, and specifically Amari Stoudemire, who had a great career here in Phoenix and was one of those more prolific pieces over those dominant runs with Steve Nash, Sean Marion, and those great teams.
Well, let me ask you, who all did you recognize? Because there was a lot of faces there that I was like, wait, who are these people? And I could totally see how, like, maybe it was a guy that I'll put it this way. I did notice that there was a lot more role players in the Suns alumni list than perhaps I was initially expecting. And that's probably for the best. We don't always need all the stars all the time to show up. But, and heck, we've got Amari was out there. Steve Nash is now a senior advisor for this team. You got Tom Chambers doing pregame, postgame. You've got, oh gosh, now I'm butchering his name, but he does the radio calls as well, and he played a little bit with the Suns as well. So there's a lot of impact. I saw Dan Marley stopped on by with the broadcast with Eddie Johnson, and so there were certainly some players there. But there's a lot of guys that I'm like, I don't know who these guys are, and it took me a second. I was really curious, but there was a lot of role players. I did see Lightning Lou Amundsen, though, was hanging out there, and I did recognize him. So hopefully Lou Amundsen wants to come on the show. I've invited him once before. No response yet. Last I saw on his social media, he was like backpacking through Scandinavia, and that was 3 years ago. So hopefully he's now that we saw him at a Suns game, hopefully he's back.
I was going to say, you've reached out to Lou Amundsen before. That's pretty insane. I know for me growing up as a NBA fan, my one real key moment with Lou Odmanson is when he airballed a floater or something like that on the New York Knicks a couple years ago. Was a prime candidate for Shaqtin' a Fool, where back in middle school, where that was my like medium television that I would watch with my friends on YouTube and in between classes and stuff, joking around. So I know Lou Odmanson from that, but I didn't really. I'm gonna be honest. Watching it on League Pass, I didn't really see too many of the former players. I did hear from people that were at the arena that Amari was there, Lou Odmanson was there, but I didn't really see who was actually there, a representative for the Suns as the alumni.
Well, I saw some on the television broadcast, some good B-roll too. Looked like they got to go golfing together, puffing on some stogies, and looked like a big buffet in the back as well. So, no, I love that. I love what the new ownership's continuing to do. I'll be honest, I am not a Matt Ishbia hater. I think some Suns fans are like, "Oh my gosh, Ishbia, he ruined it by getting rid of the Suns culture and reaching for Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal." Hey. If our biggest concern is that we reach for the brass ring after begging for it for the entire Sarver era, hey, I'm okay with taking the shot. It looks like he's got his hand whacked and he's going to try and be smart about it now. But one thing that he has always been very good at is fan service, and I would say service to the game by inviting some of these Suns players back. Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, Ring of Honor. Steve Nash is back in the building as a senior advisor. $2 hot dogs. It's you don't usually think of there's not too many good owners in sports. I feel like you don't ever hear like, oh, this guy, amazing owner. Like it's usually always a villain type role that they're playing. Like Jerry Jones, you traded Micah Parsons for the Cowboys. We hate you, Jerry. But it's like this guy, whether he, got too involved in those initial trades with Kevin Durant, it's not necessarily for us to say. I mean, the guy came in and spent billions of dollars to own his own team. Maybe he should get a say out of the gate. And let's be honest, all of us were behind it. And then all of us had revisionist history, and we're like, what did you do, Matt Ishbia, you fool? You listened to us, you idiot. No, I'm here for the Matt Ishbia experience still, and what he's done for the franchise and for the, I think it's a little funny that he went and got the naming rights, but hey, the morgue is what we'll call it. It sounds like an intimidating place to play.
Oh, for sure. And I think the future becomes the present. Says it perfectly here in the comment section. You want an owner who's willing to try. And I completely agree. You mentioned Jake, like he maybe got a little bit too complicated and got a little bit ahead of himself. Earlier on with the whole Kevin Durant situation and trying to make this team into that championship contender when he got hired, maybe rushing it a little bit. But I think now he realized that mistake and is taking that little bit of a step back. Obviously, there's still the question mark of the Brian Gregory hiring. People still maybe thinking, obviously, maybe that still is Matt Ishbia kind of controlling things a little bit behind the scenes. But we'll have to wait and see with time. And I do think, like you mentioned, even though it's just hot dogs, even though it's making sure that the games are access to available to everyone in Phoenix, those things are key for making sure that you're doing the fan service, and he is doing that 100%, which you can't say about every NBA owner. I know, or any owner in general across sports. I know multiple people that don't like the Boston Red Sox owner for how cheap he is and how he doesn't spend money and how he doesn't do that. Well, Matt Ishbia is the complete opposite of that. So you as a Phoenix Suns fan, there may be some perks or there may be some downsides to having Matt Ishbia as an owner. Maybe he's a little bit too talkative. Maybe he's a little too front forward. Maybe he says some things that the Suns fans maybe don't really believe in, or he's a little too confident in this team. But at least he's willing to put his money where his mouth is, and that's something you have to be appreciative with this owner and trying to take those steps forward to try to make the Suns a little bit of a nice culture. Because before this finals run, at least for me, growing up, Phoenix kind of was not really a big market, was a little bit smaller. And I feel like they have the opportunity with Devin Booker and the area they are in to be a bigger market. And I think that could be huge for them, especially in this new revamped situation that they're in with these younger players and this younger core.
Yeah, I feel like some owners would have said, oh, shoot, yeah, we did mess up with that deal. Prepare to tank. Let's, and he, I think, is saying, hey, you know what? Let's see what we can do to remain competitive. We don't control our own first round draft picks for quite a while. And you know what? Let's have some fun while we're doing it. Let's keep the fans engaged, involved, and see if we can't, the Rockets, 2 years ago, were kind of teetering on, are they going to make the playoffs? And it was a fun team to watch. They went on a run late in the regular season, and then they were kind of considered a threat to go deep in the playoffs last year, obviously. So it's certainly possible. We've talked about this team obviously a little bit during the offseason about, not high expectations for them. I certainly don't expect a deep playoff run. I think the ceiling right now seems to be just a first round appearance, perhaps. But it's amazing how after 2 games, and I never thought I'd be saying this, we got just smoked by the Clippers. I'm still having more fun than I had last year. What about you, Bruce?
Oh, 100%. I can completely agree. And the crazy thing is the Suns at both of these games have been down and out of the water at multiple points. Obviously, in the first game, in the first half, they were completely out of it. They came back, worked their way back into it. This game here, they started off a little bit hot. Then in the second quarter, James Harden goes absolutely nuclear, and the Clippers start to blow it out in the third quarter, which makes it a little bit difficult for Suns fans to watch getting late in the game. But like you mentioned, Jake, I feel like with these lower expectations going into this season, it's a little bit more at least tasteful when watching the Suns lose, and you can just swallow it a little bit more and be not like as furious as comparative to where you were in past seasons, because the effort is there. You're seeing them give a damn. And even in the third quarter, where they're still struggling to shoot from 3-point range, they're getting those shot opportunities up. They're still going out there and playing hard on the defensive end. They're not just letting the other team drive on by them and just walking up and chucking threes left and right and center and just legitimately looking like they are done for the night with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. And that's something with Jordan Ott as this new head coach, and obviously DeMare Carroll and all these high assistants is going to keep bringing out, and especially with the competitiveness too of all these players competing for roster spots. I think it is going to be very vital to see within this team, and I really, really like so far what I've seen from these two teams. I think the Clippers are a little bit, I said this yesterday in John's stream, but they're a little bit a class ahead of the Suns, and you can kind of see that yesterday, specifically when they lost their game 1 to the Utah Jazz. I thought they were going to blow us out going into this game, but it's just nice to see, even if the Suns lose by 20 plus, that there were still some positives in the game, which I feel like last season there wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I definitely feel like perhaps to borrow from Kevin Durant, hey, lower expectations, you can play a little bit freer, is kind of what he mentioned to some of the Suns fans that were saying, hey, look at the vibe, it seems to have improved. and I felt like that, even though we were getting beat down by the Clippers, especially towards the as the second half rolled on. To me, it was a little bit more like, okay, well, but we know we have to correct some things. Like it didn't seem like a drop your shoulders, drop your head. We just, this is tough. There's nothing we can do. It felt like everything was at least understood, correctable, and just it was easier to kind of let it go and move on. And I guess, yeah, maybe again with lower expectations, that's easier to do. But we'll jump here a little bit deeper with the first game of the season against Sacramento Kings, where we were down 17 at halftime, down 10 after the first quarter to DeMar DeRozan, to Zach LaVine, and they were without their best player, Domantas Sabonis. They were without out also their starting power forward as well. I almost said Kyler Murray, Keegan Murray, right?
Yes.
Keegan, yeah. And so down their entire front court, essentially, starting the Suns legend Drew Eubanks at center, and we were down 17 at the first half. I'll be honest, I wasn't really that nervous about it. There was something about what I was seeing from the team, and maybe it was that, hey, Dillon Brooks, maybe you don't need to shoot the ball all the time, and that's super correctable. That I was like, okay, let's just see how this game, what adjustments can be made. But I thought even down 17 going into the first half or into the second half, I was like, there's something we could do to tweak this a little bit, I bet.
Yeah, I was a little nervous, I won't lie, just because it was the first kind of half of the season and we had seen some resemblance. I obviously wasn't going to completely tear away the Suns and maybe trash them as much as some people have on social media in the past 48 to 72 hours following these games. But I was a little bit disappointed for the fact that they just didn't come out with that offensive firepower. Now, obviously, with just Devin Booker being that offensive piece, losing Kevin Durant, losing Bradley Beal, you're going to have to supplement some of that offense somewhere in this lineup. With no Grayson Allen and having Dillon Brooks or in this lineup as well, I do think the Suns are obviously looking to try to find that, and Brooks has been the guy to kind of step up to take those shots. Unfortunately, they weren't really falling as consistently in the first game there. Yesterday, it was a little bit better hitting some from 3-point range, but the Suns just were very streaky from 3-point range, and especially on offense in the first half versus the Kings, where guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine were just easily finding avenues to score and just picking apart the Suns defense. The only difference in the second half was the Suns defensively came ready in that second half to make a difference and to strike to limit those opportunities and to force the Kings into making some bad shots and forcing the play into some other players, which allowed their transition defense to be a lot better, to pick up those turnovers and then to score in transition to lead them in nice second half.
Yeah, I think the obviously the Suns are having to start Grayson Allen at the moment at the 2-guard position with Jalen Green
Yes.
on the shelf. Which, by the way, I was taking a look at that. That was over 3 weeks ago and was considered a low-grade hamstring injury. Obviously, he's missed the first 2 games to start the season, and there's no reason to rush him back. This isn't the playoffs, the long season, and I get that. But I'm a little surprised that it was low grade, and it's 3 weeks and counting. After 2 games, I know we're going to stick in this Kings game here for a bit, but you could see it in both games, especially in the Sacramento game too, out of the gate, where Devin's going to need a second ball creator. He's going to need another person that can take the ball, because he's getting doubled almost every time he touches it, which forces a Dillon Brooks to think that he needs to step up. And honestly, he had a decent offensive game in the second game, not so much against the Kings. But we can't have Dillon Brooks leading our shot attempts and doing super well. So concerns about the Jalen Green low-grade hamstring tweak and how important is he going to be to this team coming back?
So I've been as with everyone being all questionable about the Jalen Green thing, at least the one thing that everyone can agree on with Jalen Green is his offense is going to be supplementary and needed for this team to thrive. Clearly, as you just mentioned with Dillon Brooks' shot attempts. Obviously, Brooks had a pretty solid shooting season last year. I believe he had his highest 3-point shooting percentage.
Yeah, over 40%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go back and look after this Kings game. Like, what are you doing? Memphis Grizzlies, Dillon Brooks, and then I had to look up his Houston Rockets numbers. I'm like, oh, he thinks he's good now because he actually was last year.
He was really good last year. Obviously, it's with him being the 4th, 5th option on that Rockets team on offense, comparative to being, the 2nd or 3rd like he was on the Grizzlies and now on the Suns. So it is a little bit different. But I do think with Jalen Green kind of coming back in there, he's going to be able to work that. And we've seen in both of these instances the Suns needing, like you mentioned, that secondary score, because Devin Booker is getting swarmed. He is getting absolutely crowded on these offensive possessions, because he has to be that initiator. He has to set up the team first, but he also then has to find a way to try to score after that, trying to give the ball up, and teams are just hunting him and making that basically relentless. With the Jalen Green injury, I do think it's just precautionary reasons once again for the Suns. I think going into this year, especially for the start, there's no really need to be rushing these players back and trying to make sure they are 100%, especially when our aspirations are maybe the 8th seed in the Western Conference. I feel like this year, especially with it being the first year of this kind of reset, the Suns should take these precautionary measures, specifically with Mark Williams bringing him off the bench and now Jalen Green. He hasn't been injured these last 2 seasons, and I think that even if the hamstring injury isn't as severe as it is, they should be taking it with more precaution due to the fact that they don't want him to re-injure himself or be put in this situation again. Because if Jalen Green is out for like a month or 2, then the Suns have a clear issue on the offensive end, and it's going to be very difficult for them to win these games and very difficult for them to get back into stride. Maybe having to even look to make a trade or something to get some offensive firepower in there, which we know with their assets is not the best. So it's a little bit of a tough situation for the Suns. I just think making sure that Jalen Green is at full 100%, even if that takes 2 to 3 weeks into the season, is the best, because if we can have him available for the rest of the year, if Booker were to get an injury or something like that, knocking on wood that he doesn't, then the Suns are at least a little bit covered in that regard.
It's to me, just the biggest thing is that's why I thought we sat him the entire preseason, because of his low grade. Like, no sense in rushing him back. Well, now the games are starting to count, and 2 games in, I hope he's going to be back fine. I actually went back and looked at the kind of injury updates, and after his injury, it was considered low grade. They're going to take their time targeting opening night, missed opening night. missed the next game. So he's, I would say, a little bit behind schedule at this point. If it rolls through next week, then I'm going to start to be a little bit more nervous about, what's going on here. But as of right now, it clearly looks like it's needed. I'm still a Grayson Allen fan. I know you're not the biggest Debo fan in the world, if only because we already have people that can do what he does. And perhaps we have multiple guys that can do what he does. But right now he's getting the start, and we're kind of seeing a little bit of point Grayson Allen out there, just to kind of because Devin knows he's going to get blitzed. I don't know if you saw, there was a tweet, I think, from Flex from Jersey about the top 5 double-teamed players in the league. Luka Doncic was one. I know Giannis was another. Now I'm already forgetting the other couple of guys, but Jalen Brunson was another, and Devin Booker rounded out the top 5. What's interesting about that is all those guys tend to get their numbers a little bit more easily, I think, than Devin does. I want to see Devin get a little bit more aggressive. And what was interesting, and again, I know keep mentioning we're trying to stay on the Kings one, but I did hear Brooks in his post-game comments last night say, yeah, Devin needs to be more selfish. I know how good he can be, and we're going to need him to be a little bit more aggressive here out of the gate.
Yeah, you mentioned Grayson Allen, Debo. I will say, comparative to the last year, I did think that they had a little bit too much shooting. I do think that they still have a player that maybe could take Grayson Allen's role in Kobe Bryant, depending on how well he does for the Valley Suns this year. If he maybe proves to be a little bit better for them, which I think he will. Maybe that's a trade deadline thing. But I will say, Grayson Allen this year is needed for the Phoenix Suns. They do need that offense. They do need that three-point shooting. It is clear and it's desperate that they need that high three-point shooting volume. Last night, I think going into the fourth quarter, they were shooting 34% on 38 attempts when the Clippers were shooting 61% on 24 attempts. Like, that is just crazy comparison. And unfortunately for Grayson Allen, the shots weren't really falling comparative to where it was game one. Game one, I thought he was a lot more viable working, especially within that Colin Gillespie unit early on in the third quarter. They were seemingly playing off each other pretty well. Grayson Allen was cut into the basket, using his aggressiveness to fight for rebounds and do stuff like that. We didn't really see that as much last night. Obviously, the game was kind of pushed out of reach a little bit closer, so maybe that's kind of some inkling toward that. But Allen, I think, could be, a pretty solid role player for this team. I do think off the bench, especially with Green, he's going to be a little bit better. I think those shooting numbers will look a little bit more consistent. I think he'll be kind of competing with Royce O'Neal for that, top tiers 3-point sniper off this bench, because so far we've kind of seen them kind of being those volume scorers for this team when they are needed in a plug and play piece. But for Grayson Allen, I think the main thing here for him this year, like you mentioned, is working that initiation and kind of getting more comfortable handling the ball. I did see some times where he did get a little bit blitzed when he was getting the ball, or when Booker was not on the court and he was being that main initiator working around Colin Gillespie, and the Clippers were swarming him a little bit. So I think working on the ball a little bit could be a little bit of a benefit for him to kind of thrive in this lineup, because I have said in the past that I do think Colin Gillespie looks as a better fit to Devin Booker than Grayson Allen does, just because he is another ball handler, and I think it seemingly makes the game a little bit easier for Booker. But I do think Grayson Allen's going to be a valuable piece, and I do think in the starting lineup he's still solid, but I think off the bench he's going to be a bigger contribution for what the Suns desperately need, and who knows, could still be on this roster by the end of the trade deadline, because they still desperately need his vital offense output.
Yeah, I think with Royce and Grayson, you've got two veteran 3-and-D guys that are going to be, if they stay on this roster post trade deadline, that's a bit of a luxury to have. It's not really a need; it's more to have. It'll be interesting to see. Right now, assuming Jalen Green would return to the starting lineup, and assuming eventually Mark Williams' numbers get there, you're going to be looking at a starting lineup of Booker, Green, Brooks, and Dunn at the wings, and Mark Williams, and then backing them up a Colin Gillespie, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Nigel Hayes-Davis, and Oso Ighodaro. Now, obviously, this is just a 2-game snapshot. We're missing some of these guys, but that seems to be what the first 5 off the bench would look like. And to me, if you got Grayson and Royce coming off as kind of your 6-7 rotation guys, not a bad problem to have. But it obviously, like I said, it's more of a luxury, I think, than a necessity. Touching more on this game, like I said, out of the gate, I was a little nervous that Dillon Brooks thought that we need him to just shoot everything, and we don't. He ended up finishing 9 of 24, and he was 1 of 8 from 3. He did kind of get his shooting stride a little bit more in the second half, as did Devin Booker. He started getting a little bit more aggressive. And as I mentioned, the second half, it was really a tale of two halves. Although the first, like I mentioned, the energy level stayed there. It was Suns were getting good shots. They just weren't falling. And so when that second half got going and the ball started going down, it started all coming together a little bit more, and the energy level stayed up. Some kind of, I guess, impressive things to me was, but besides Dylan Brooks shooting too much, was Mark Williams seemed to come off the bench playing very hard out of the gate. He ended up finishing 6 points, 11 rebounds, a couple of block shots. Really like to see that. And then I'll just say, Devin Booker led the team in the end. A lot of it came from the free throw line with going 10 of 15, not quite as usual. Automatic self from there, but he did have 31 points, 6 turnovers, not ideal, but like I said, he was getting blitzed just about every time he touched the ball. So there were certainly some high points and a little bit of some low points, but like I said, we got the win. That was the important thing, coming back from being down 17. We end up winning the game by 4 points. And like I said, over Suns legends Drew Eubanks and Dario Saric. Shout out to those guys for putting in the effort. But what did you think? Any surprises? Any kind of lows? Or what are you thinking about? Let's jump right into the Mark Williams experience. You like what you're seeing out of the gate?
Yeah, I really like what I see from Mark Williams, and I wrote a piece for Brightside following the first game, diving into Mark Williams a little bit. I posted some of the Twitter clips on a thread as well, but I just looked at his rebounds, looked at his possessions, looked at his blocks, and just the one key takeaway that I brought from it is he has patience. And I know that's like a small little thing that maybe you were just like, well, they learned that in middle school, Bruce. Well, yes, we all know that. But from seeing sporadic Suns for the last couple of years, you have to appreciate these little things. And Mark Williams his timing is perfect. His ability to slide over when Royce O'Neal's getting beat both times to secure both blocks at the rim, specifically in the fourth quarter when the Suns are trying to claw back into these games, trading shots back and forth with DeRozan and Dylan Brooks. That's what you need from a guy in Mark Williams. And I know a lot of people have been yelling at their screens, why is Oso Ighodaro starting? Get this guy off my team. Get this guy out of the starting lineup. It's for the comfortability reasons and the precautionary reasons. Mark Williams is on this minute restriction. Oso Ighodaro is not going to be the starting center, but it just goes to show you that Jordan Ahn has trust in Oso Ighodaro, and he believes in what Oso Ighodaro can do for this bench unit. And I think they're just trying to work Oso Ighodaro into those minutes comfortably, right? Mark Williams is still finishing these games. Mark Williams is still getting a big bulk of some of the big minutes playing with the starters. It's not like he's just sitting with the bench unit and just sticking into that role. The Suns want him to be that starting center for his impact on the glass, because he was leading the team with 11 high rebounds in that game one. He can be that rim deterrent. He can be that glass cleaner for this squad, getting those second chance points. And last night they were very active in the glass in the first half, not really in the second half, but I believe they had 11 rebounds in the first half last game versus the Clippers, and 7 of them for the wing. So the ability to crash the glass and be active on the glass is going to be key, and Williams is going to dominate that for this team. I just think that some of the fans are being a little bit reactionary with him coming off the bench, and because of his injury history, he should be starting. He should let him take the time to get comfortable with this team, with Devin Booker. They're clearly still building that chemistry. They alluded to that after the Kings game, where Shane Young asked him about his passes to him. He said he missed a couple lobs, that he's going to use that connection to his best ability, because a guy that can work in the high screen pick and roll and be a lob threat is so vital for Devin Booker and for the spacing of this team. So I do think that Williams is going to get that comfortability once he gets into the starting lineup. And I think that everyone yelling at Oso Ighodaro needs to calm down a little bit, because the big man, even though he hasn't been this dominant rebounder or high value defensive rim deterrent, that's not his game. His game is an offensive passing big that is going to help generate the offense and be able to run some point forward. And he's been able to do that perfectly. There's sometimes he's been able to handle the ball in this regular season and looked pretty solid, where I feel comfortable him handling it. And I do think once he slots into that bench role and is playing with the bench unit, working with guys, specifically some solid 3-point shooters, and Rasheer Fleming, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen out on the perimeter, he's going to look as such a better connective passer coming out of the short roll that it's going to be impeccable and for this team. I just can't wait to see.
Well, and I right now the Suns again, have another luxury, a little bit of a glut. And we knew this coming in from the offseason. We have too many centers. Right now, Nick Richards is getting playing time. He got 4 minutes, 42 seconds against the Sacramento Kings, and he came in last night and ended up with, 8 minutes, 57 seconds. I don't know if that was just to let other teams around the league know that we have Nick Richards so they can come on down and get him, and he still works just fine. But right now you've got Oso Ighodaro, who's not a three-point shooter. You got Mark Williams, who's not a three-point shooter, and you have Nick Richards, not a three-point shooter. And we had the number 10 overall pick, and we used it on a center who can shoot threes in preseason and summer league. I don't know if we necessarily want him to do too much of that, but that to me, that was the biggest takeaway for me in terms of kind of surprise. Outside of Dylan Brooks shooting too much, was we didn't even get to see our number one pick in the first game. But that's because we have Nick Richards is not a bad center. He is a solid rotational big. I wouldn't want him necessarily as a starter anymore, but the challenge is going to be that Malawach is certainly not better than these other guys ahead of him right now. I think he will become better, but as of right now, I kind of, it's something I don't envy with Coach Jordan Knott is how do you include these guys? I mean, maybe Oso can play a little bit of four because as you mentioned, he's kind of more of a passing big, a connector. He could maybe he's got a little bit of a floater that he can use, a little bit at the away from the basket. But that's not Mark Williams' game. It's not Nick Richards' game. And so I think that at some point, as Williams' numbers go up in terms of minutes, I think he's going to Richards is going to be not getting any minutes moving forward. But what were you surprised at all that we didn't see Malawach at all in game number one?
I was a little surprised, but ultimately with the Suns being down 20 and trying to come back, the momentum didn't seem like they needed to implement Khaman Malawach into that situation. Now, if the third quarter had gone a little bit different, similar like to last year where they kind of fade out, then I could obviously see a guy like Malawach kind of getting some play. But I do think him being that fourth center, even though he is this 10th overall pick, he has all this high promise, is the smart decision for the Phoenix Suns because like Matt Ishbia said, and like Jordan Knott said at the beginning of the season, they want to win, they want to compete, they want to be in the best situations. And I don't think the raw talent of Khaman Malawach, no matter how intriguing it is, going to be able to see him play, is the best center in this rotation. I think he's clearly behind the three guys that we mentioned because they have gotten that NBA run. And I do think that they've proven across the NBA league that they can be valuable centers, where Malawach still has some things to learn on the defensive end and still some things picking up with the game of speed compared to the NBA. Obviously, the preseason, he did look good in some aspects, but obviously playing against some lesser talent, maybe not some of these star players, some of these high-level defenses and stuff like that. I do think, though, to your point to Nick Richards, though, he is just going to be used right now just as some extra insurance for Mark Williams coming off the bench. Once Williams does get into that starting role, I think we'll see him and Oso Ighodaro playing those starting center minutes with Khaman Malawach being that third big, with the Suns using that contract of that $5 million in Nick Richards to use as a trade piece. We all know that the center market is always in need out at the trade deadline, and specifically with Nick Richards being on $5 million. It's not like the Suns can't trade him for like a couple second round picks, get some additional draft capital, or maybe even package him with another player like a Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal now that they can, because they're out of the second game.
Yeah, that's the big thing this year.
To get, a 50, even like a $10 million player or $12 million player to even shed some salary, but still get a quality piece. It's something they need. Maybe it is that offensive spark plug still on that bench unit that they could still have within their team. There's still some things to kind of keep an eye on within this Suns squad, because like you mentioned, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I don't know if this full roster is going to be on this team by the trade deadline. And I'm not expecting that. I think there are some pieces that the Suns already in the back of their mind kind of know as could be some tradable assets or some flippable assets to kind of reset this roster. They have their core pieces in mind, obviously, but they know depending on the season that they're going to have to readjust that to kind of cater to what direction they're heading into. A good question here in the chat. Do you guys think the rookies need better minutes overall than just the garbage time play? Yes, I will say eventually, yeah. The first couple of games, I want to see what this team is capable of at full strength and using, the supposed best guys that are ready to compete right now. But at some point, if the season starts to go the other direction, then I would expect them to lean more into the youth movement of Rasheer Fleming. I want to see more from him, Malawach, Kobe Brea, as you mentioned.
we have these guys, and they should probably be getting more than the 5 minutes we're getting crushed type stuff, because then the other team's not really trying either, and so we need to find ways to get them involved. But as you just mentioned with the Malawatch one, there's too many guys in front of them that are just ready to go. It'll be interesting to see more of a Rasheer Fleming. I haven't seen anything necessarily from Nigel Hayes-Davis that's making me say, oh, he's got a lid on those reserve 4 minutes. So maybe Rasheer is able to eat into it here in the future, and then I'll be curious to see if Ott does kind of what we saw in the last couple of years, where it seemed like Vogel and Coach Bud were still tweaking things late into the season, and I don't know if that was good or bad. I mean, obviously, it ended up not getting too much success, but now's the time to test some things, and so we'll see. We've got a handful of games coming up against worse talent, we'll say. We've got Jazz game coming up, for example. So is that a safer opportunity to try? I don't know. They just beat down the Clippers, who just beat us down. So it's at the very beginning of the season, I'd say let's just ride with our best horses and see where we go with it.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Jake, as well. For Rasheer Fleming, I kind of want to make this point where he obviously got some minutes yesterday, and I think he looked very active for the team as a passer and someone that was given that energy in those kind of garbage minutes. One thing I kind of keep an eye on in him is I feel like he's kind of that combination of the Nigel Hayes-Davis and the Royce O'Neal, where he can be that effective defender, but if his three-point shot does fall, he'll be as viable as a three-point scorer. And Royce O'Neal, what I've noticed so far from the two in these games is that Royce is obviously still a better three-point shooter. I know yesterday went on that little run in the second quarter to get it going. Then obviously towards the end of the game, maybe was jacking up some more shots. People were not really favoriting his shot diet, but the Suns were just trying to find some three-point volume to hit the basket. So going with Royce, who had some confidence early on, made some sense. But you look at Nigel Hayes-Davis, he hasn't really been very vital for the offensive end, but I think kind of his smart IQ and his positioning has allowed him to be able to keep out there on the court. I know Stephen Prigion-Gardner had a interview with him, or with the media, and he was talking to him about stuff and was pointing out some key information about him moving off the ball and creating more space for opportunities, and just noticing those little things, I think, is what's keeping that value of Nigel Hayes-Davis on the court. I don't think he's going to do a lot of big stats. I don't think he's going to have a game where he has 7 threes or he's going to have 3 blocks, but I think he's really going to do those little things on the defensive end that are going to help this team be that smart player. And I think he's more valuable on the defensive end. I think Royce O'Neal is more valuable on the offensive end. And I feel like Rasheer Fleming is kind of that combination of both. And it's only going to take time for Rasheer Fleming to get that playing time and to get that experience to really thrive and kind of take one of those spots from one of those two. And I do think by the end of the season, he will be in that rotation, either playing that starting backup power forward or backup small forward, depending on who still is on the roster filling in that role for one of those players. But I think right now we still have some time to see who that guy is going to be, not only with Rasheer kind of developing his three-point shot and getting his comfortability, but also seeing how Royce O'Neal and Nigel Hayes-Davis look through the start of the season to kind of figure out who could be that dependable bench lane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, as I mentioned, the Suns got that come from behind win against the Kings. So that was amazing to see. Now let's talk about the Suns' 102-129 loss. Yeah, I know, but we got to talk about it. And that was smooth. And so, it was not pretty. What's interesting? The first quarter, we were up. Oh gosh, I forget what our biggest lead was. Was it 10 or something? Maybe even more. And I was like, wait a minute. Are the Clippers this year the Suns from last year? Not just because they had Bradley Beal, but Kawhi Leonard and James Harden just looked like they were just kind of listless out there, kind of just flowing around. And Bradley Beal was trying to get his revenge game going, which I remember tweeting out. I tweeted out at some point last night. I said the Suns actually need more Bradley Beal on the floor. He was the Clippers' worst player, significantly worse than the others that were playing. In fact, he finished with a +2 overall. You could say that some of the other guys were just a +1, but they also only played 4 minutes and 46 seconds. Beal started, he had over 20 minutes and was still just a +2. The other starters, Kawhi Leonard +9, Derek Jones Jr. +12, Zubac +15, James Harden +22. So, Brad, I can't wait till we play you again. I hope you try your hardest to beat us, because that might be our best chance to beat the Clippers. Once again, Suns are led in terms of shots attempted by Dillon Brooks, although significantly more efficient. He was 7 of 17 overall and 5 of 10 from 3-point range. So interesting to see that. Dillon Brooks, let's focus a little bit more on Dillon Brooks. He was getting into DeMar DeRozan's face. He was getting in James Harden's face. He was a bit of a wild man.
Dude, I love these sound bits. They're absolutely hilarious.
So bad, they're awesome. Yeah.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked when you didn't bring up Bradley Beal. There was no boo or anything like that going on with that. But with Dillon Brooks,
he blew up our roster. Let's stick with the crazy.
Well, that's the guy guarding Dillon Brooks every time he's got to deal with him coming off a screen, because Dillon Brooks is yelling, he's feisty, and I'm telling you, I already told John this. I'm gonna have an article coming out for Brightside at the end of tonight's game, talking about his infectious energy and just how much of that is just needed, and it just feeds off of these players. I tweeted about it last night, but you saw Dillon Brooks getting into it with DeMar DeRozan in the Kings game. He started getting into it with multiple people on the Clippers during this game. Started off with James Harden a little bit, then he had that little scrum when they were dapping each other up after hitting the free throw. After Harden was getting to the line, he got into the scrap with the Clippers, kind of getting into it. The 4 guys came over. Then we had Big Meal Royce O'Neal getting into it. James Harden slapping him on the stomach. He was pushing him. Colin Gillespie, Villain Jr., who Dillon Brooks has identified, he was getting scrappy. I saw him like shoving Chris Paul like off the inbound pass and stuff like that. Like, he was playing with some grit, and it is just, like I said, infectious. The energy is just seen throughout the whole team, and they're just all feeding off of it, buying off of it, giving it all on both sides of the floor. And you just love to see it. Dillon Brooks is that character. He is what these Suns needed last year in that locker room to kind of wake up this team, kind of bring out that fire. And I feel like Jimmy Butler was kind of very similar to that as well for this team. Obviously a bigger contract, a more prolific star player, but has those same characteristics. You know, someone that's not going to give up, someone that's going to continue to fight, someone that is that underground dog that is going to continue to just keep on battling and not give up. And that's what Dillon Brooks is. Unfortunately, on the offensive end, we're seeing the repercussions because he is jacking up an abundance of shots here, and it's not really helping out the Phoenix Suns. But on the defensive end, man, is he relentless. Man, is he that workhorse that the Suns have been wanting to see on the defensive end. And I can't wait to see how that rubs off onto guys this year, but also for the future, for guys like Ryan Dunn, Rasheer Fleming, other players that are going to continue to come through this organization, because you can only imagine that what Dillon Brooks instills into these young guys now is going to stick with them for the future and for when they continue to build with those building blocks. And I just love to see it. He has just been that complete fire that the Suns need.
You know, it reminds me a little bit from last year, you know, with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. And it's hilarious. As soon as we started talking about Bradley Beal, King Nacho heard a call in the wild, and he said, I've got to get back into this podcast and talk about Bradley Beal. You know, the 3 of them, Beal, you know, he's kind of happy-go-lucky. Booker and Durant, both kind of stoic guys. They're just not super vocal. You know, we love it, I think, as Suns fans, every time Booker would get in Luka Doncic's face when during Suns Mavericks matchups and let that kind of fester and feed the rest of the players. Dillon Brooks is that every night with every player he faces off against. And I don't know if I misunderstood the broadcasters, but they said, I might be butchering it, but they said Dillon Brooks is looking forward to his first technical foul of this year or something like that. Like, he knows he's that guy that, you know, even if you played in pickup games, you hated when he was going against you, because he was that guy that every time you took a shot, even if it felt phenomenal in a pickup gym type game, he was like, off, that's long, that's off, it's trash. And you're just like, hey, shut up, dude. It's not that serious. You're playing at the YMCA right now. But he is that guy. And then when he's on your team, you're like, oh, man, he's pissing those other guys off so much. That's Dillon Brooks. And if Booker's not going to kind of direct traffic or in a very vocal way, I think that it's as you said, it's infectious. The other guys are going to get a little excited, and because Brooks is going to be that guy that is constantly digging into the other team and upsetting them and causing things to not go quite well, that you know, all of a sudden I could see teams get very frustrated, and then Grayson Allen knocks down a few threes, and Mark Williams starts dunking on him, and Ryan Dunn starts blocking shots, you know, at the rim. And all of a sudden, it's all because maybe Dillon Brooks, you know, really got under somebody's skin and you know, Booker's going to be kind of the maestro running the show, but he's just a little bit calmer, and that's something that I don't feel like. Well, I mean, as you mentioned, the Suns have been looking for this, but I think Suns fans have been looking for something like this as long as since Jay Crowder was on the team, and Jay was certainly not as intense as Brooks is. But, it kind of reminds me a little bit. It's kind of like a Draymond Green effect. Like, you don't want Draymond Green leading your team in shot attempts, but you do want him calling out his own teammates and demanding that they step up, and then getting the other team frustrated so that his team can really take off. And I'm here for it. I definitely ranked him as one of the more punchable faces in the league. But even I think while saying that, I was like, and I would love to have one of those punchable faces on our team. And we have one with Dillon Brooks.
Yeah, I think he's the great disruptor for this team, and someone that you mentioned that I think is going to work very well for Booker. I know Matt Ulysses brought this up in the Suns Jam show yesterday, their post game, but he was talking about how Brooks can be that disruptor for a guy like James Harden, where he can get into his face and he can be that kind of antagonist, while the Suns kind of have that score on their end kind of going off, and he can kind of mirror that back and forth. Unfortunately for the Suns, Devin Booker really wasn't that kind of all-off offensive guy. Was getting swarmed, has obviously dealing with being that initiator too. I know he had 5 assists early on in the first half, or the first quarter, excuse me, and then I think kind of slowed down from that, obviously, once he was getting blitzed a little bit more. But like you mentioned, if the Suns can have Dillon Brooks being that instigator, that antagonizer, someone going at the opponent's best score, he was doing it versus DeRozan and versus the Kings. He's going against Harden. That is going to be key to allow Devin Booker to feel some more creative ability. And if he's seeing that Dillon Brooks is shutting down, their top scorer, maybe even feels him to be like, all right, I need to go get a bucket now in this next possession to give us this lead, to get us back into this game, because Dillon Brooks is doing his all to shut down shut down their best scorer, limiting them to only 10 points a game. I need to step up. I need to deliver. And it's only going to fuel the fire for him and his teammates to be better on the offensive end. And I think to work connectively more. We've also talked, we haven't really mentioned this, but one key thing that I've taken away from the Suns these past 2 games is the ball movement. The on and off the ball has been absolutely a complete 180 compared to last year. Last year, they were just stagnant in the corner, standing there. Kevin Durant standing in the corner for 14 seconds, not moving. Tyus Jones standing in the corner, being an off-ball catch and shoot scorer when his main priority is to be a playmaker and to set up the offense. This is what we want to see from the Phoenix Suns, and it's just beautiful to see them actually like working into these new styles and actually like seeing this roster being tailored to fit to that and succeeding in that compared to what we've seen. Because I feel like last year, we and you have talked about this before, the rosters were just kind of put together and there was no really cohesiveness. I feel like this year there is actually on both sides of the ball, which allows for the Suns to look good on both sides. Even if they're down 25 points, they can have some big plays and some big stops to maybe go on an 8-0 run to where you could be like, well, that at least minute or two was impactful for this team. And just those bright things are good to look at for a rebuilding team, specifically one that's trying to reset and get back into those conversations, ones that we're not expecting them to really get into this season at least.
Right. They love it. They love it. No, I think, the one other thing that I'll mention too, and because I'm in total agreement that we're going to see this team go on some interesting little runs in games that are going to shift momentum. One thing that I will highlight, though, as much as we are here for the Dillon Brooks experience, I think sometimes it can backfire and it can set another team to go, try and lock in a little bit. And that ended up being exactly what the LA Clippers did last night. They ended up shooting over 59% overall. James Harden, 8 of 12, 5 of 7 from 3-point range. He was just picking on the Suns after the first quarter. Derek Jones Jr., a perfect 6 of 6, 5 of 5 from 3-point range for 17 points. And Kawhi Leonard, 11 of 21. So it was certainly, Brooks has to pick and choose his battles because I think if he just kind of keeps his foot on the gas, it does kind of just allow somebody to get used to his antagonisms. But I'd rather have more of it than less of it. That is for sure. So as mentioned, it was just it was not quite the same game as the Kings game. We were only down 1 at the first quarter, but then it kind of fell apart after that. We went down 16 going into halftime, and we just never recovered. We did outscore the Clippers by 2 in the fourth, but it didn't make much of a difference. We lost by 27 points last night. But and I've already alluded to as well. It still feels more fun than, as you pointed out, than what we watched with the Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Booker experience last year. Some things to kind of highlight though out of 2 games so far. Obviously, super small sample size, 2 games, but a lot has been already written about that. The Suns are attacking the basket. They're not the mid-range mafia anymore. Booker's still trying to get his, but being double teamed every time he dribbles, it's going to be harder, and he might be just trying to draw some more contact, get himself to the line. And we're seeing that you got, if Malawach gets more run, you got 4 bigs that can take it to the basket a little bit and try and draw some contact. Right now, and like I said, just 2 games, we are ranked 9th in blocks per game, 10th in steals per game. Excuse me. We are assists. We are 22nd. Perhaps the most concerning thing out of the gate, 3-point percentage. We are shooting 32%. That's good for 25th in the league, and field goal percentage overall 44.3%, which is good for 25th in the league. But we do have we're 16th in rebounds per game, and so there's not a lot to necessarily get excited about. I mean, like I said, our best ranked of the ones I just mentioned was 9th in blocks per game and 10th in steals. But it's a different type of style of play. We're going more into the paint. We're trying to draw contact. Top 10 in steals, top 10 in blocks. I guess I'm just more here for the defensive experience than I thought I was going to be. What do you think about the, I think the 3-pointers will come, especially with a Royce O'Neal, Grayson. But I think this team is trying to go hard in the paint out of the gate. And what do you think of that offensive approach?
I really like it. You mentioned the activity on the glass is very key for this team. Mark Williams led the team with 11 rebounds in game 1. I believe Ryan Dunn was the second highest with 10. They did pretty solid on that. And then last game, unfortunately, in the second half, weren't doing that great. But in the first half, they were fighting for those offensive boards. Like I mentioned, 7 of them came from the wings. I believe Royce O'Neal and Ryan Dunn had 3, or Nigel Hayes-Davis and Royce O'Neal had 3. Royce O'Neal had 1 at the point or something like that. But regardless of the fact, they were crashing the glass, and they're just showing the extra care for keeping this possessions alive and to get those second chance points. I know the Suns ranked bottom 3 in second chance points last year. So just kind of seeing this new change and this new switch up of thinking on that side of the ball, I think is going to be very key for this Suns team. You mentioned yesterday as well that Harden was getting into his rhythm, was really finding himself for this Phoenix Suns versus Phoenix Suns team, getting to the free throw line. So being a little bit more disruptive on that, I think would be something that I would like to see a little bit more, and trying to not maybe get into foul trouble, or trying to work some of these guys that maybe do try to foul bait or get to the line a little bit better on the defensive end to be a little bit more restrictive. But you mentioned top 10 in blocks, top 10 in steals, that you want to be that team in the stocks. And unfortunately, the 3-point shooting is down. I do think that obviously we are going to be a better offensive team than defensive team. We'll have to see with Jalen Green back how that offense does look, because we're not seeing it at its best potential. I'm not going to say that Jalen Green is some phenomenal 3-point consistent shooter, but hopefully we do get to see a little bit more of that with him and Devin Booker working together. And even with them being on the court together, it makes obviously Devin Booker a little bit more prominent on the offensive, and having that secondary ball handler, not getting forced into these traps and into these blitzes, which is going to be very key to his offensive growth. So ultimately, I do like the defensive stocks and the way that we are playing the defensive way, because I think that's kind of the embodiment that Jordan Ott wants to have for this team. Is obviously we're going to fight hard and try to score baskets, but we're going to be relentless. We're never going to give up, and we're always going to be fighting for those second chances, regardless if it's on the boards, regardless if it's forcing a turnover, regardless if it's making that big block at the rim. And the Suns have been doing that these last couple of games, and I only see that continuing to grow, specifically with the insertion of Mark Williams in that starting lineup. I think he's going to be very key for getting those blocks. I think we're going to see the rise in that category for the Suns this season with their deep front court, especially with 4 big men, and Richardson, Malawach, and Williams all being, pretty solid shot blockers as well.
And I think Oso is going to help that second unit when it's, when Green's back and Oso's, moving the ball around to Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen to get them more open shots as well. So I think it's going to play well with those guys. And then Booker and Green having a Mark Williams that can, finish through traffic in the paint. That's going to be great. some things I thought were kind of interesting to note. I mean, again, just 2 games, Planeteers. So let's not, these are certainly not indicative of what's going to happen the rest of the season. But without looking, Bruce, who is leading this team in field goal percentage?
I'm gonna go either Grayson or Gillespie.
Ooh, okay. Actually, hold on. I wonder, is this accurate? I have to take a look at it myself. Wow, it is. Okay. The leading in field goal percentage right now, Devin Booker, 51.7%.
Okay.
Royce O'Neal is next at 42.1. Grayson Allen, 41.7. Dylan Brooks rounds out the top 4 at 39%. That explains a lot right there at Planeteers, is that you can't have only one guy, and especially since we have 4 centers and none of them are over that mark right now. I guess technically, I think Mark Williams, they have him at 40%. So that's why I was wondering if the information I'm looking at is 100% accurate. But points scored right now, Devin Booker's leading the way at 24.5, even though Dylan Brooks is certainly leading the shot attempts. Who's leading with assists per game, do you know?
That one, I'm going to go Grayson.
Grayson Allen with 6 assists a game. Devin Booker has 5 right now. And who do you think is leading the team in steals right now?
Is it Ryan Dunn?
Not quite. He's leading the team in blocks with 1.5, but Dylan Brooks, the villain, is leading the team with steals at 2. Mark Williams leading the team coming off the bench with 8.5 rebounds a game. Oso Ighodaro at 5. Again, this is coming from Yahoo Sports. I already feel like there's going to be some debate on this stuff, because if you jump into Mark Williams' shooting percentages, it says 40, and it says top 4. It does not list him. It says Dylan Brooks is at 4th at 39%. So I'm not exactly sure how often these things get updated. But let's round it out. We do have a game today. The Suns are flying from LA out to Denver to play at 8 o'clock tonight against the 0-1 Denver Nuggets. I'll be honest, I don't feel comfortable with this game. I don't think it's going to go well, and there's just a whole host of factors. Denver's been sitting there. They did not like that they lost their first game. I think you mentioned Aaron Gordon went off, and they still weren't able to get the win. And the Suns just got clobbered by the Clippers. And then as soon as they took a hot shower, they got on a flight and flew all the way to Denver to try and get ready for tonight's game. So predictions for tonight.
They're gonna lose. It's just the unfortunate truth. Like you mentioned.
Whoa, hold on. I got you, Planeteers.
Hey, I'm just being honest. Look at Denver, they're a top team in the West. I thought that the Clippers were in a different league compared to the Suns last night, and I feel like we're going to see kind of the same story once again. Aaron Gordon obviously went off. He had 50 points, had 10 threes. I don't think we're going to see some sort of performance like that again. But Nikola Jokic was forced into 13 three-pointers in that game versus the Warriors and only made 2 of them. That was clearly the Warriors' game plan. I don't think that the Suns are going to force Jokic into that, and even if they do, I don't see him shooting 2 for 13 from three-point range once again. I just think that his interior presence is going to be too dominating for, some of these bigs, regardless if it's Oso, regardless if it's Mark Williams. I think he's just going to be too much of a presence. And their three-point volume is going to be pretty solid if they can hit their three-point shots with guys like Jamal Murray, Cam Johnson, a former Phoenix Sun. Now they're on the perimeter. Those are guys to keep an eye out. One thing that I didn't mention with the Clippers, but we talked about Derek Jones Jr. He went off versus the Phoenix Suns last night. Didn't miss. Do you know if he dapped up Aaron Gordon on like the flight or something like that? Because I could have sworn that Aaron Gordon passed his shooting touch to Derek Jones Jr. last night versus the Suns, and Derek Jones Jr. is now going to pass it back to maybe someone on the Nuggets, or maybe it's the transitive property and the Suns now get to go off versus the Nuggets. We have a guy that gets 10 3-pointers and doesn't miss after our terrible shooting night. So that would be something nice to see. Maybe if that comes into play, the Suns have a chance here. But ultimately, I do think Denver, especially coming off the back-to-back, is going to be a little bit too much of a brute force. I would like to see how Devin Booker does analyze this game going into today, specifically with him being talked about his shot attempts last night. You obviously mentioned the Dylan Brooks press conference. I do think tonight we're going to see a little bit more from Devin Booker offensively, fighting for those shots and hunting for those opportunities here on the offensive end to be that offensive guy. But let's not forget that they also have the Utah Jazz this week as well. So maybe if they do lose this game going into the Nuggets, they can kind of get some rest heading into Utah and a much needed W versus a weaker Western Conference team.
Yeah. King Nacho said it's going to be a loss, but it's not going to be as bad as last night. And the future becomes the present. Said, I don't see them beating the Nuggets unless you start Malawach. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you right there, Michael. I'm not going to let you turn into the King Nacho and have this be your entire identity for the rest of the season, where you're just going to say, you know what, we would have won if we started Malawach. Malawach will not be starting against the Joker out of this gate. No, we can't do that right out of the gate and just
I don't want him breaking an ankle or hyperextending a leg or something like
and
that.
And Joker would pump fake him once and he'd go flying and and then he snaps a tendon or something. So let's just let Malawach get comfortable with the game. Let's let him simmer a little bit. But I do want to see some Mark Williams, and I think Oso might have better footwork than Mark, which might help him stay in front of Joker more. But Mark's going to be probably better in the post. Hey, I tell you what, I'm here for if you want to roll out an Oso and a Mark Williams rotation at some point. Let's see what they can do, and so I'm fine with that. I predict it's going to be a loss, but hey, I think there's going to be some hope on the horizon to close out the month of October. The Suns after tonight will go Monday. They'll be playing the Utah Jazz, followed by the Memphis Grizzlies on Wednesday, and then again the Jazz on Friday for Halloween night. I'm going to say that a loss tonight, but I'm going to say 3 wins after that. I'm going to be real bold out of the gate for this team, and I'm going to say 3-1 until we record next. Bruce, what do you got?
I'm going to go 2-2 just due to the fact that I think that the Suns running into the Jazz in the early of the season will lose one of those games. Unfortunately, I just don't. With the Jazz beating the Clippers on opening night, especially in the beginning first couple of weeks, you can never really predict what these teams are going to do. They're all trying to once again get their chemistry up, work together as a team, and try to find what's going to be best for their offensive and defensive units. So I do think that one of those games will be troubling for them. But I do think that Grizzlies team is very, very injured going into the season, specifically in the front court with no Zach Edey, no Brandon Clark. And I think that this, and they have a weakened guard room as well. And I think with no Scottie Pippen and no Ty Jerome. And I think that the Suns are going to use that to their best advantage to beat the Grizzlies. So I'll say 2-2. And I'll say that, let's say that they lose on Halloween, but I'd love to see them get a spooky win for us coming into the podcast on Saturday.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was Feeding the Ducks music. I don't think that's what we need them. And night driving, that's not going to be it either. So, we're still testing out all the new tech, but no, I'm down for the spooky win. Speaking of spooky, we've had a ghost here on the podcast with us the last couple episodes. Kevin is still on the show, and he's here in spirit, but he is actually at a work conference today. So he says he promises to be back with you Planeteers and joining us next Saturday. So, in the meantime, let's just all channel our own Dylan Brooks. And Bruce, let the folks know where they can find you, and then we'll hang out and leave the show.
Sounds good. Well, once again, thank you guys, Planeteers, for coming in on this Saturday afternoon or morning if you are in the Phoenix area to talk about the Phoenix Suns and to listen in Jake and I ramble about our team that we're so excited for this upcoming season. You can find me over on Twitter at Bruce Velez or Blue Sky over there. You can read my work at Bright Side of the Sun, where I'll be having a lot of articles coming out throughout the season, obviously doing some game recaps, but also breaking down players, specific schemes, just everything about the Suns I'll be writing over there. And then you can find me over on YouTube at Swish City, where I upload my NBA just general thoughts, talking about specific teams, players. Going to be trying to have a couple guests on during the season to talk about their specific teams. So that should be fun. So if you're just an NBA general fan as well, you should definitely check that out. But that's where you can find me.
All right, and you can follow me at Fallen Founder on Twitter. And I wrote my second article on Brightside. So there's a thing. It was me trying to just add a little bit of caution, make sure and that was right at the beginning of the season. So I think it's going to be a tough uphill move for the Suns this year. But again, like I said, I'm having more fun. I'm having more fun. I hope you guys are too. It's amazing. If you go back into last year, we actually had some host changes as we had Hamo. God, has it been only just a year? Hamo was on this podcast in Australia. He'd wake up at about 4 or 5 in the morning, and he'd hop on with us. And then around late November, I believe it was, right around Thanksgiving, I think he said he had a motorcycle and he wanted to ride his motorcycle for about a week. And then he came back and said, you know what? I am so burnt out on this Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker team. I just don't have it in me right now. And so he took a break. And then we added Bruce, and Bruce hasn't been burned out yet. And he's coming in just as soon as the team is starting to show some fight and some grit. So that's perfect for that. And actually, Hamo sends his well wishes to everyone as well. If you want to say hi to him, you can find him on the social medias as well. So check us out. We'll be back next Saturday. We're back, guys, at our regular scheduled time, which is this time. But wait, next week will be not yet daylight savings yet. But just always remember it's going to be about 9 a.m. for the Phoenix crowd. And we'll go from there. And hey, Al McCoy, we've got production value again. Take us home, buddy.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine here on their home court.
Here's Perry. The guard hurt. Here's the jump shot. Good. It's good.
Al McCoy with you courtside. Bumped up a three.
Shazam! He ties it. ADA. Al and Tim up here.
happy birthday!
Right. Yeah.
I know it's a moment. Happy birthday, baby!
Here's Cameron Payne out on top. Durant, three-pointer straight away.
Shazam! I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone in this arena this afternoon, to all of those that are watching and listening on radio and TV. Thank you for allowing me to tell the story of the Suns for 51 great years.
That pretty much wraps things up here. And for one last time, this is Al McCoy saying thanks for being there. Thanks for being with us tonight. And from the Footprint Center here in downtown Phoenix, we'll just say so long for now.